Hello everybody. Today we are going to go over Master 4.2 Extra Practice 3 for Lesson 4.3, another form of the equation for a linear relation. So this one here consists of 6 questions, and we're going to need some graph paper. So I have some graph paper over here, and we are going to start with question number 1. So number 1 is asking us, number 1, does each equation describe a vertical, horizontal, or oblique line? So just so that we're aware, I'll make a little note up above them. A vertical line means one that's going up and down. A horizontal line means one that's going left to right. And an oblique line is one that's going sort of diagonal in this way, or maybe diagonal in this way. So oblique just means a diagonal line, horizontal means left and right, vertical means up and down. And they want us to state whether these 4 equations are vertical, horizontal, or oblique. And we can do that just by looking at the equation. So first, when we look at A, we have y equals 4. So we only have one variable in A, and that is y. And whenever you have a single variable of just y, we know that it always makes only one kind of line. There's only one kind of line that makes. We know that that is going to make a horizontal line. So what I can do to answer this here, I can put in this here, and I'm going to start with A. So for A, we have a horizontal line that intercepts the y-axis at 4. So that's how we can describe our first one. Now for B, when we go and we look at B. So if we look at B, we have 2x plus 5 equals 7. So now that I have that 2x plus 5 equals 7, what I got to do is I got to figure out, because it wants me to describe the type of line, I want to figure out what x is when it's all by itself. So I'm just going to take this up here, do a little bit of algebra. If I have 2x plus 5 equals 7, that's going to be 2x equals 7 take away 5, which is going to leave me with x equals 7 take away 5 divided by 2, which is going to give me 2 divided by 2, which just equals 1. So x equals 1. So for B, I can rewrite this equation as x equals 1. That's what it all works out to be. So for B, what I can say for B, since I know that I have just an x coordinate, that tells me one thing. That tells me that B is a vertical line. So whenever I have just an x coordinate and there's no y, I have a vertical line, and since I've worked out that x equals -1, it's a vertical line that intercepts the x-axis at 1. So there's A and B done for us. Now in C, I have 2x take away y equals 6. So for C, I don't really need to describe this line because it's telling me that I only need to describe vertical and horizontal lines. And because I have an X and a Y, both X and Y, that tells me it's going to be an oblique line. So for this one here, for that one right there, what I can do is I'm able to say for C, oblique line. And that's all I really need to say for C. Now for D, on the other hand, when I go and I look at D, D has just a y again. 3y plus 9 equals 0. And I'm left with a similar situation like I had in B up top here. So if I look at C, and I take this equation right here, and I do a little bit of algebra up top. I'll do this up top here, a little out of the way. So I'm going to say 3y plus 9 equals 0. If I want to get rid of this 9, I have to subtract 9 from both sides, which leaves me with 3y equals 0, take away 9. Now I need to divide this side by 3, so I got y equals 0, take away 9 over 3. 0 take away 9 is negative 9 over 3. Negative 9 divided by 3 is just a negative 3. So I'm left for this one here. This one here leaves me with y equals negative 3. So in D, I'm left with that line there. So for D, I can say that this is a vertical line, or sorry, a horizontal line. Horizontal line that intercepts the y axis at negative 3. And we're done. There we go. It's A, B, C, and D done for us right there. And okay, actually what I'll do, so I'm going to say this here is question 1 space A. So that we know it's all question 1 right here. So for question 1, there's our answers right there. Now, question number 2 here is asking us, it says, which equation below describes each graph? So we have 4 equations, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we have 2 graphs, one right here and right here. And what we need to do is we need to figure out of these 4 equations, which 2 match the graph. So if we look at this first graph here, here we have our x and our y axis, and we have a horizontal line. So I'll highlight this one here. This one here has a horizontal line, and it's going to go through the y-axis at a positive 2. Now, if we look at this graph here, here we have a vertical line going up and down, and it's going through x at negative 2. That point there would be negative 2. So this first one here is a horizontal line that goes through positive 2. So when we see a horizontal line, we know that's a y, and it has to be a y that's going through positive 2. This one is y equals positive 2, and this is y equals negative 2. So because this is going through a positive 2, I know that this graph here, goes with this equation here. So I can say the answer for this one is number 3. Y equals 2. So that's this one here. Now, for this next one, we have a vertical line going up and down, which tells me that it has to be one of our two x values. Here we have x equals 2, and this one here is x equals -2. And since this line is going through our x-axis at -2 right here, I know that that is indeed the proper equation. So that I can say that this one right here goes with this graph. So I can say that number 2, x equals -2, is how I can describe that graph. Question number 3. Now this is where we start to get into some questions that take some time. And I'm going to wind up using some graph paper. It tells me the sum of two numbers is 8. Let x and y represent the two numbers. Create a table of values for 5 different values of x. Graph the data, should you join the points, and then C, write an equation that relates x and y. Excellent. So for part A, I can answer part A for number 3 right here. For 3A, we want to make a table of values for x and for y. And they want us to use at least 5. So I'm going to start with 0, then I'll say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the question I have to ask myself is, as the question says here, the sum of two numbers is 8. So what number do I need to add to these here in order to equal 8? So if I have 0, what do I need to add to 0 to equal 8? Well, 0 plus 8 would give me 8. And the same thing for the next one. If I have 1 and what I want to equal 8, 1 plus what equals 8? So it would be 1 plus 7. Now for the next one, if I have 2 and I want to equal 8, I have to add 6. If I have 3 and I want to equal 8, I have to add 5. And if I have 4 and I want to equal 8, I have 4. Oh my. So here we have a table of values, and now we have our coordinates. 0, 8, 1, 7, 2, 6, 3, 5, 4, 4. I can also see that my y value, each time when I go and I look at my y value, it's going down by 1 each time. And this is going to be important when we get to part C, because remember, this is what we call the rate of, oh, I misspelled that, rate of change. And if you recall, we have this number when x is equal to 0, whatever y is equal to at the time, we call that the initial value. So those two things will come in to play when we answer part C. But for right now, for part A, where it says create a table of values for 5 different values of x. Well, there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 different values of x. Here it is with our values of y. Next, it says graph the data. So I'm going to just come over here to my graph paper. I'm going to draw a graph with my graph paper. Since I don't have any negative numbers, I don't need to worry about setting up a negative chart. So here we go. Here we go. We'll say this here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is my x-axis and my y-axis. I want to make sure that those are labeled. And now I can start to put these points in. So 0, when x is at 0, actually I'll put this in. This is 0, and that is 0. Oh, I guess I could have did those in black, but it doesn't matter. 0 and 0. So when x is 0, y is 8. So I can put my first point on there up here at 8. Then when x is 1, y is 7. When x is 2, y is 6. When x is 3, y is 5. When x is 4, y is 4. And if you want it, we can continue this pattern even though it's not in our table. Actually, no, we'll complete our line. So it asks next, should we join the points? And for that, I'm going to make a little text box up here, and we're going to talk here, and I'm going to say, yes, you can join the points because the decimals still count. As an example, 1.5 plus 6.5 equals 8. This data is continuous. Period. So yes, so now that I have that there, I can indeed join my points with a line because the data is continuous, which means that even if I pick this point here of 7.5 and 0.5, because it's halfway between 0 and 1, so it'd be 0.5 on my x and it'd be 7.5 on my y, I can still use that point because it still would add up to 8, so it still works. So I can indeed join these points with a line, and if I kept the line going, you can see that all these points here, well, I went a little crooked, but that's just because I freehanded this. All the points should go right along that line. So that if we continued our table of values over here, when x equals 8, y would equal 0, because 8 plus 0 is still 8. So there we go. So that's number 3b done for us right here. And now when we come over and we look at 3c, 3c says write an equation that relates x and y. All right. So now what we can do is we can write that equation, but we have the information we already need over here in our table of values. We have our rate of change and our initial value right here. Remember, your rate of change, -1, this is what we multiply. This is what we multiply x by, and our rate of change is what we have to add at the end. So when we have the equation, we always start with our dependent variable right here, our y variable. So for 3c, we're going to say y equals, then we take our rate of change, which is -1. -1 times our independent variable, which is x, plus our initial value. So when x is 0, y equals 8. So in this case, our initial value is 8. So the equation for this is y equals -1x plus 8. And just to prove that that is correct, if we take the equation we just wrote, y equals, so I'll write that again right here, y equals -1 plus 8. If I was to take the values for x, so if I just pick one at random, so if I just say 2 right here, if I say that, -1x plus 8, I'll make that a little clearer. -1x. So here I have -1 times 2 plus 8, which is going to give me -2 plus 8, which is just going to equal 6. So we can see that when x equals +2, y equals 6, and that is true. So we know the equation we made right here works. So now on to number 4. And number 4 says graph each line. So this here should be fairly straightforward. We are going to need to do a little bit of algebra. But when we look, we can see that this is x alone, this is y alone, this is y alone, and this is x alone. So we're going to wind up with 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. So for number 4, the first equation we have is x equals 4. So I'm going to put question number 4 right over here. I'm going to say number 4, and I'm going to draw my grid right here. I'll put this here. If I need to make it bigger, oh, it's getting a little crooked, but it's all right. If I need to make it bigger later, I'll make it bigger. That's okay. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This here is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. We'll say -6, -7, -8, -9, -10, -1, -2, -3, -4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so here we go. There we have our graph, and the first one for 4a is going to be x equals 4. So x equals 4, just like we have right over here in 4a, x equals 4, which tells me that in 4a, we're going to have a vertical line that goes through +4. So for 4a, x equals 4, we have a vertical line like this one here. And it would go on to infinity in both directions unless we had something telling us to stop. So now if we look at 4b, we have 4b right here, which is for 4b, we have the equation 2y equals 6. So now if I want to get y all by itself, I need to divide them by 2. So y is going to equal 6 over 2, which equals 3. So I know y equals a 3, a +3. So for question number, or for line B, 2y equals 6. That really is going to be, it comes down to y equals 3. So now when I go to graph this line here, I'm going to make a horizontal line that's going to go from left to right, and it's going to go through the y-axis at +3. So there's +3 on the y-axis right here. So it's just going to be a horizontal line that comes all the way across in both directions, and it goes through the y-axis at +3. So now we go and we look at C. And now that we're looking at C, we have take away 2 equals -6. So in order for me to get rid of that -2, I have to add 2 to both sides. So that's going to equal y is -6 plus 2, which means y is going to equal a -4. Because -6 plus 2 is -4. So now for 4c, that's going to be, since it's y again, it's going to be a horizontal line that goes through -4. And since right here on my y-axis is -4, we have a horizontal line that's going to go like this, all the way across. And if you ask, should I be drawing lines to join these points? Well, as long as you have the points labeled, that's fine. It doesn't tell us to join the points. It doesn't tell us not to join the points. We could do it either way. Now that we're looking at number 4D, 4D is 2x plus 3 equals 8. So I'm going to use a little bit of algebra now to work this out to find out exactly what x equals. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to get the 3 to the other side of the equal sign, so that's going to give me 2x equals 8 take away 3. Now to get x all by itself, I have to divide by 2, so I have x equals 8 take away 3 divided by 2. 8 take away 3 is 5 divided by 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So I can say x equals 2.5. And since I know it's an x, I'm going to wind up having a vertical line going straight up and down that's going to go through x at positive 2.5. So on our line, on our x-axis, this is where 2.5 would be right there, right where I made the yellow dot. And this makes a horizontal line that goes all the way up, continuing on, and all the way down, continuing on. So this is what your number 4, question 4, should look like. 4A is right here in red. 4B right here in blue, 4C right here in green, and 4D right there in yellow. And there's the equations for them right there. I'm running out of room, but that's okay. We'll make do. So question number 5. For each equation below, make a table for the given value of x. And then this is graph each equation. So what I think I might need to do now is get a little bit of extra graph paper. So I'm going to add in a sheet of graph paper. And I can do that pretty simply. I just got to find it in my list here. There we go. Insert this here. And now I can click on this piece of graph paper and get it moved over to this side here. Make it big enough so that we can still see it. Right here, and this is going to be for question number 5. So for question 5, I got myself a new sheet of graph paper and it wants me to make a table of values for each of these questions here, or each of these equations here. There's the values they want me to use for x. So for 5a, I'm just going to write 5a down here. 5a, we have a table of values. And we have x, and then we have y, and we have -2, 0, +2. And I have this equation that I've been given right up here, which is 3x plus y equals 3. So I'm going to write this equation in right here. We have 3x plus y equals 3. So now, if I replace the value of x with these numbers here, that will be able to tell me the y values I need to put in. So first things first, we're going to say 3x, it's -2 plus y equals 3. So 3 times 2, -2, is actually going to be -6 plus y equals 3. So now in order for me to get rid of this, I need to also do, so that's a -6. I need to add 6 to this side, but I have to do the same thing to this side. And these 6's cancel each other out, and I'm left with y equals 3 plus 6. So y equals 9. So this first value is 9. Now, I can do this 2 more times. I can have 3x plus y equals 3. This time, I'm just going to replace this with a 0. And that leaves me with just, because 3 times 0 is 0, so that leaves me with y equals 3. And I can see here that that went down by 6. So if I went down by another 6, that would bring me to negative 3. We can also use the equation by putting in negative 2. So I'm going to wind, or positive 2. But think of it this way. If I have 3 times positive 2, that means I'm going to have a positive 6, and I'm going to have to subtract 6. So 6 take away 3 is going to wind up being negative 3, so it still works out. So now I have these coordinates here, and it wants me to, oh, look at that, that's moving with it. So now it wants me to graph these. So I'm going to make a graph right up here, and for this here is 5a, we'll say. And this here will be, we'll say this here is 10, 9, oh, not 19, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. This here is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So I don't need any more than that. So when I go to graph this, my first point is going to be negative 2 and then a positive 9. So that's all the way up here. Then I have 0 and positive 3. Then I have positive 2 and negative 3. So there's my points, and that has now been graphed. So for number 5, we've now graphed for 5a. We've now made a table of values down here, and we've graphed it over here. Now for b, number 5b. So for number 5b, we're going to make the same table of values, but we're given a different equation, the new equation, and I might as well put number 5 up here a little bit. I'll put 5b up top here. And I have the equation x take away 2y equals 8. And I have my table of values, x and y. X is going to be negative 2, 0, positive 2. And I can now fit them into this equation up here. So if I replace x with a negative 2, so negative 2 take away 2y equals 8. So if I want to get rid of that negative 2, that means I need to then do the add 2 to this side. I have to do that to this side as well. So I'm left with negative 2y equals 8 plus 2. So to get rid of this negative 2y, I need to divide by negative 2. So that would leave me with 8 plus 2 divided by negative 2, which gives me 10 over negative 2, which equals a negative 5. So this here is negative 5. And now I can keep going. So if I want to fill out the next one, I have x take away 2y equals 8. This time, if x is 0, I just have to do y equals 8 divided by negative 2, which is going to equal a negative 4. So that's negative 4. So all I did there was I went down, or sorry, I went up by 1. This is going to wind up being a negative 3. So I have these points here all done. And I might as well graph them down here in blue. So now 5b is going to be in blue. And the first point I have is -2, -5. So on my graph over here, I can say this here is a -5. So -2 and then -5 is down here. Then 0 would be a -4. And then +2 would be a -3. So that's also going there. So we have those two lines that intersect right there. So they both have a point of 2, -3. Look at that. So that's number 5 done for us. Now we're on to number 6. Number 6 is graph these equations on the same grid. Which shape is formed? Great. So now I'm going to take number 6 over here and I'm going to write the 3 equations. So the first equation I have for number 6, x plus y equals 6. So for question number 6, the first equation I have is x plus y equals 6. The next equation we have was y equals 1. So we have y equals 1. And then we have x take away y equals -6. So the third equation is x take away y equals -6. All right, so now that we have these equations here, they want us to graph these lines. So the best thing for me to do is to create a new graph right over here. It's going to go number 6. So the easiest one of these to graph first, right here, I'm gonna underline in blue, which is just y equals 1. So remember from earlier, when we have y equals, this means that we're gonna have a horizontal line, and it's gonna go through the y-axis at a +1. So it's gonna go right through here at a +1. And this is gonna go all the way across in both directions. So this equation that this line that I'm drawing now is the equation y equals 1. So now what I need to do is come up with a table of values for the other two. So for this one that I'm going to highlight in red, we now need to work on a table of values, and I'll put that table of values right here. So there we go. So now here so first off, let's look at how this equation should look. We have x plus y equals 6. What I want to do is I want to subtract x from that side, so I'm going to wind up with y equals 6, take away x. And I'm going to graph this line. So if I have a table of values, x and y, and let's say I have x is going to be equal to 0, x is going to be equal to 1, x is going to be equal to 3. In this case here, if I replace x with 0, 6 take away 0 is just 6. 6 take away 1 is 5. Oh, this should have been a 2, not a 3. 6 take away 2 is a 4. So now I have those 3 points. 0, +6, right here. 1, +5, right there. 2, positive 4, right there. So we can keep this table of values going, but we can clearly see that as x is going up by 1, y is going down by 1. So we're going to continue the pattern like this. So now I'll do this third one here in green. So this one here in green would really be if I have x take away y equals negative 6, then I can say y equals so I want to take away x from both sides. So I have negative 6 take away x. So what I'm left with now, if you notice, is I have a negative y equals negative 6 take away x. So what I want to do in order for me to be able to get this to work is I need to multiply this negative y by negative 1 to make it a positive. But I also have to do the same thing by multiplying this side by a negative 1 to turn that positive. So negative 1 times negative y leaves me with just positive y. And then negative 1 times negative 6 take away x leaves me with positive 6 plus x. So now that we have the equation, we can make a table of values. And this time when we go to make our table of values, we're going to say if x is 0, x is negative 1, and if x would be, actually I'll make that a little bigger. So if x is 0, and if x is negative 1, and if x is negative 2, and we put it in there, 6 take away 0 is still 6. 6 take away 1 is 5. 6 take away 2 is 4. And we have these 3 points, and we can now graph them up here. So 0 and 6 would go right here. Negative 1 and 5, negative 2 and 4, and this pattern will continue like this. So we have one line going like this, we have one line going like this, and we have one line going like this. And number 6 is asking us, what shape is being formed by these lines? So for that we can say for 6, B, and isosceles triangle is being formed. Okay, oh, there we go. So the answer for 6 is right over here. That's all the math worked out. There's the graph right here. And of course, we typed in the answer for part B right over there. It makes an isosceles triangle. Okay, so that's all 6 questions answered. I hope that this was a little clear. I know I was a little all over the place here, but hopefully this was helpful for you and that you'll be able to use it. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. And I hope you have a good day. See you later.